Hello everyone, and welcome to the Game Engineering Podcast. Today I am joined by Elias. Elias is an interesting character. He juggles a variety of different roles. He is a co-founder at Team Quaqua, an indie game studio where he works on Superators. He also works as a head of game programming at SAE Institute in Geneva. And he organizes a conference called RGB Conf. It's a 3-part conference, so basically 3 conferences in one. And he also co-organizes a Swiss Romand game dev meetup. And you'll hear him saying Swiss Romand. It's a fancy way of saying French-speaking part of Switzerland. And with that, let's meet Elias. What should we start with? What are your roles that you want to start with?
Oh, I have so many roles. It's not. I don't brag about my roles. It's just that I can only find balance in my life when I'm not attached to one specific role. So I'm the head of the games programming department at SAE Institute, which is fun because it keeps me alive. Then I have this game developer or co-founder of an indie studio role where it's a lot of fun. We're doing games. I'm working on my game Superators. I help sometimes Kevin, the other co-founder, on his project. We've been discussing last week about the future project, what we wanted to try to test, and it's gonna be fun. It's not keeping me alive though. I don't get a big salary, any salary actually from the company. I'm also writing. So that's something we're not going to talk much here in this podcast, but I enjoy writing. I wrote the first draft of a novel last month. That was a fun challenge. I do love to do sports also. And so and also I'm the co-organizer of the Game Developer Meetup, which is not a big role. I just organize one session every, 3 to 4 months when I have external lecturer from SAE Institute coming, and I'm like, oh, let's bring him or her let's bring them to the meetup. So there used to be a time when I was organizing more the meetup, but now a bit less. So David Javet and Julia Jeanneret are doing a really good job with the meetup. I'm the lazy guy behind with my beer and like, yeah, organize it from time to time. And sometimes I help with like putting the seats or helping for the audio check, but that's mostly. I mean, it's the meetup. It's not something like super important, super professional that needs to be perfect in every way. We friends and we're drinking beer together mostly. That's the Swiss Romand Game Developer Meetup because it's a pretty friendly. I would not say amateurish scene, but it's a really indie scene, the Swiss Romand scene. So we can talk about whatever you want. The thing is, a lot of people don't know my technical background because they see the sort of public faces like Team Quaqua, oh, you're doing fun games on Unity, and that's it. But they don't see all the sort of work I did at SAE Institute where I'm like doing crazy technical things. That I really enjoy and that I cannot talk about. Maybe let's start with the technical things because I can talk about Superators at the meetup with other people, but the technical things, well, I'm mostly alone. Even at school, my lecturer colleagues, they're not going to talk about x86 assembly tricks or thing like this. So we can talk about that. And I arrived, so I've been coding in C++ for the last 10 years, but I started coding in Python. Python was my first language.
Wait, 10 years ago? Python? Did you say? Okay.
I'm not that old. I'm like 32, so no, maybe it's a bit more than 10. No, it's so Python I started like when I was 18, so it would be 14 years old. It's the thing, you always think you're younger than you think you are when you're in your 30s. I've been programming for the last 14 years, so not that much. I didn't started programming when I was a kid. I did that after it would be high school, I suppose. So 18 years old, and then I went to the EPFL, Swiss Institute of Technology Efroza, in English, in computer science. So I sort of learned programming just before going to university to learn computer science. And I really enjoyed Python because it's a pretty simple language. It forces you to, with the indentation, to do things sort of correctly. And there's this thing of philosophy where it's like, there's one way to do the things you want to do, and it's a simple way. So if you try a more complex way, it means you're doing it wrong. So I really enjoyed this sort of philosophy. And I started to make games in Python with Pygame, the library.
Oh no.
Oh yes, with like sprites that you played on the screen, and it was SDL 1.2 behind Pygame, so I had my own game engine with Pygame, with my animation system and everything. I think I used JSON for like animation description, or I coded them by hand. I don't remember exactly. And so I started to do game jams with some friends, artists' friends. And so I had my little program, and we could do pretty simple games. And so we started with that. Mostly narrative game, I would say, that we did. Ludundari 2013, end of 2013, we managed to do something really great. They got a bit of traction from Ludundari. We were really happy about that. The game was our second game, was Last Promise, and the name of the game was The Last Promise. And I already used this name, Team Quaqua. So Team Quaqua is sort of the container where I put my games, sort of. So that's how it started. And during the same time, I discovered the Swiss Romand Game Developer Meetup. So that was 2013, 14. So yeah, sort of 8-9 years ago. Yeah, we did the 10 years anniversary last Friday. And so I was like, oh, I can actually make a job out of this. It's not just a fun little hobby. And so we did a lot of game jams with my friends. So my artist friend find other artist friends. And so we did some game jams together. That was pretty fun. And then there was a time where they were doing their bachelor thesis or something like this in their own arts university. And we sort of stopped doing games together. So I was in a point where I was like a super jammer, I would say, with my Python engine, where I sort of upgraded using PySFML, something like this, a wrapper around the SFML framework in C++. And then I had my own C++ engine that was calling my Python codes.
Nice.
Yeah, it's always like that. When you start, you have to do something always too complex. And then there was a time I was like, oh, I want to do game jams, but I have no artists, so I'm going to ask game artists from the meetup. And so I asked, so I was doing my master in Zurich in game design, and I asked Kevin Peclet, who was a game artist who presented a big project during the meetup. And I asked, oh, you want to do a game jam? And he was like, yeah, sure. And so we took the train together to go in Basel, where there was a location of the Ludundari. So it was a 2 hours trip to Basel. I think we slept on site. I don't remember.
Wait. On site Ludundari?
Yeah, it was like a sort of location of the Ludundari. It's like, yeah, sure, why not? And so we went there. Yeah, I think for 2 days we slept there. And we slept well. But did we take a room? I don't remember. It was so long ago. And so we were both of us together. There was a third one, a friend of mine who was doing music at his own place. But when you do music, you don't need to be like fully present. You do your music and then you give the asset and it's all good. So he didn't need it. So Hamza Aiken was a colleague of mine from the Swiss Institute of Technology, a university buddy, who did the music for the first iteration. So the game was called Super Splash Fisticuffs, which was a sort of Super Smash Bros. With jetpacks and water gun. And so we did this little prototype with Kevin, and we realized we worked pretty well. So that was my first game on Unity as well. So I sort of quickly checked Unity, how it works, how to do animation and things like this before the event. So when we arrive at the event, I could be efficient in Unity. And we quickly had a prototype on the Saturday. Like the Ludundare is on the whole weekend. It starts it started on Saturday 3 a.m. for Switzerland and finished on Tuesday 3 a.m. So on Saturday we already had a little prototype with one animated character that we can play with, and it was like and you can already fight the other. And so now it was just about designing the mechanics and everything. So I was like, oh, we worked pretty well, Kevin and I. That's nice to see. So we did this weekend. We finished this little prototype. That was not, I mean, people found it fun, but you know, when you say, yeah, your game is good, then it's not that great. But I still corrected some bugs, and I went to Fantasy Basel. I think it was 1 week or 2 weeks after the game jam. And yeah, with Kevin, we said, yeah, the game jam is done, and that's it. We didn't thought about making a bigger game out of it. And so there was the Fantasy Basel. My university was proposing some spots for students to showcase their game, and I was like, oh, I'll work a bit on Super Splash Fisticuffs to make it a bit better, to work with several controllers, things like this. It was working with several controllers, but I think I don't remember what was the problem I had with controllers. But so I implemented that, and I arrived at the booth. So I was supposed to have like a 3-hour slot on Sunday, but because no other student used the slot, I could just stay all day long, and nobody was annoying me. And I remember I went to university to print the A3 poster of our game, like 2 little screenshots of our game in A3, and just put it there next to another game that had like a big poster. But because it was the university games, they were like super weird artsy games that nobody understood, sort of. And we were like with like a normal game. I mean, it was still a bit clunky and funky, the gameplay, but it was like a twin stick shooter where you move your character with a jetpack with the left stick, and you shoot in the direction that you want with the right stick. So when you understand that, you're like, okay, sure. So I had the little A4 control instructions, and that's it. And I just let the player enjoy the game. And I never said it was a 2 days or maybe 1 week prototype. I just let it like this and let people do their own assumption. And what I realized is people enjoyed it, actually. They were having fun. So I was like, I mean, that's also a bias that you have when you have local multiplayer game at festival is like people will have fun because they play with their friends. So if your game sucks, they're still sort of going to have fun. I mean, mostly if your game sucks, they're even going to have more fun than if your game is just good and not great. But still, I thought we had something. And Kevin was also there to showcase his other game. The game names, I think, was Otherworld, something like this. They had to change the name because there's another game called Another World that is like super famous. But it was sort of I think it was a roguelite, big exploration game, something like this, where they had their own custom engine in C#. I don't know if I have the poster here now. Yeah, I don't have the poster. Kevin has the poster. There was some problem with the production and things like this. And so there was a point. So their project, Kevin's project, it was not Kevin's project. It was part of this project. But this project was not going great. And so I proposed to Kevin, on the side, we can work on this Super Splash Fisticuff game. Maybe we can work 3 months on it and release it, maybe on Steam. And like the Switch didn't exist. And it's like, release on Steam and see how it goes. And like, yeah, sure, why not? Like he tried to play it. We can do some things about it. But I was still doing my master's, so I could not go fully on it on the game like Kevin. Kevin could not. So we sort of reserved our Fridays afternoon. So what would happen is the whole week I was doing my study in my master. Sometimes I was also working on the game because sometimes you have free time, so you just correct some little things. But on Friday I was taking in the morning. I woke up. I took the train from Zurich, went back to Lausanne, get some kebab or whatever just to eat something. Then I was at Kevin's place probably something like 2 p.m. and we would work until midnight. With like
You started at 2 p.m.
p.m. until midnight, just working on this game. We changed. One of the first thing we did is changing the name of the game. We called it Splash Blast Panic, which is not better in terms of naming. Kevin chose this name, and now next time he's gonna choose it. LVT is okay. It's a nice name that he chose for his own game. But next time we work together on a project, I will double check and double veto if I need. If the name is like completely unpronounceable and more than three syllables, that's for sure, because Splash Bash Panic is not a great name. So I started to call it Splash.
Yeah.
I think we started to call it SBP, but if you use another name, the name you chose, it's not a good name.
How do you get from doing this stuff into more low level engine like work? Because you're mentioning like when you say game jams, it's usually about like completing a game, so you kind of don't really want to dive into details too much.
Yeah, and so exactly what the kind of things I do with Team Quaqua, like Splash Blast Panic, for example, is like super high level. It's like gameplay. It's a lot of fun because you implement something, you see a difference, and you don't think much about optimization or anything. But then at school, so Splash Blast Panic, I finished my studies, my master, and I was hired to start this game programming department at the SAE Institute. And so I had a class of, I think I started with 7 students. I don't remember. It was 2016. Yeah, 2016 I started. And directly, the first thing I thought was, I don't want to have a curriculum where the students only learn Unity and that's it. Because when you think about it, when you do a game in Unity, it's mostly you have your game object, your scene, like if you do the naive implementation in Unity, obviously, and you put some C# on game objects, your component. It's scripts, and it's not that it's not coding. But it's not. You don't start from main. You don't control the systems behind the game. It's just you control the game object, and that's it. And so if you only do that, you don't have the full picture of what a game is. And because I started with Python, with sort of Pygame, where even if it's is a high level language, when you're doing a game, you still have to do all the systems.
Yeah, because Pygame is not an engine, right? Pygame is just like
it's a framework, so you have to do the engine. It's a pretty simple engine that you have to do if you do a 2D game. But still, you have to think about, how am I going to play the animation, and how am I going to render the thing? So you have to organize your entities and everything. Doesn't mean you do that well, but you have to do it. You have to think about this problem, which is not really the case when you're working in Unity in the sort of naive approach that you would have. So that was the first sort of vision I had for this department is, no, I don't want to do only Unity. And so what are the alternatives? What are the things that are important for the industry? So I really sort of settled down and look at the industry in general, and I was like, we need to teach them C++. But I was not that good in C++. I did learn C at the university, like really low level C. And so I started to learn back again a bit of C++ while giving the courses. And if I look back on my courses and my level in C++ 7 years ago, I would not be happy with myself. But it's the past, no regret. I learned since then. And so I started the curriculum teaching C++. Then I had the module. So a module is about is a trimester, is 3 months. So we did some Unity or so as well. But my goal was like, you will quickly learn how to make a game in Unity. But my goal is also for you to learn what's in the engine.
So you're saying 3 months? Is it weekends or weeks?
No, weeks. So at SAE Institute we have 6 hours of course per week, 6 hours workshop. That's the mandatory hours the students have to be on site. Otherwise, you have the rest of the weeks to do your projects and your personal projects as well. So that's also part of the curriculum. It's mandatory to do personal projects in games programming. So 2 years ago we implemented this. So now it's mandatory because you have to present in 5 minutes every month what you do on the site, and the staff as well. So the teachers, there's 3 of us. We also have to present what we do on the site. So the 3 years, because it's a bachelor, so it's 3 years. The 3 years, all the students in every years have to present what they're doing on the site, what documentary or conference talk they saw this month, what they tried to do in their project, and it make it more dynamic, because now you know that you have to present something in 5 minutes, and in English as well. So
can you also speak a little bit to the structure? So in the course you have the bachelor degrees, right?
Yeah.
And it takes 3 years, and you're teaching a course which is a subset of this 3 years, and it is how long? 3 months? Or
yeah, it's 3 months. So it's modules of 3 months mostly. So we start with programming in C++ and doing a really simple platformer game after 3 months in C++. Then we switch to Unity with the game design module. Our goal with this module is to learn the basis of game design, but also to discover what's the industry, because most students they play Fortnite, it's fun, but then it's like, there's other things as well, games, mobile games. You're probably not going to find your first job at the preferred game that you want to do, because you have to eat, and so that's what we try to do as well. We do some a pen and paper role-playing game workshop, for example.
Nice.
Because some students want to do Skyrim or whatever. They want to work at Bethesda or at BioWare, and I'm like, yeah, did you do some role-playing game before that? And they're like, nope. And you're like, maybe you should. So we do a little workshop for them to learn that as well. Then we do, so the third module is procedural content generation and basis of AI. I don't really like to say AI. It's more autonomous behavior, or I would say interesting stupidity, because that's what an AI is in a game. It's like an opponent that you define the patterns in sort of stupid way for players to understand them. I don't give this course anymore. It's my colleague, and he does a big roguelite game during this 3 months module on Unity. Then 4th module is going back to C++, doing like design patterns, software engineering, things like this. Sorry. Then 2nd year is starting to be more serious. So we start to look at 86 assembly. Sorry, I have to drink something.
So on the 2nd year, you already look at the assembly code. That's
the goal. We start with that, because you can't do optimization of your C++ code if you have no idea what it's doing behind that. Like, you can't understand the hardware if you can't read assembly. So my goal is not for them to write assembly that well, because it's not that much of a useful skill. But we start the second year by learning assembly. Like the first week is x86 assembly. Really the simple instructions, and such that they can be able to read the compiler explorer output. Yeah. That's my goal. And then we look at the CPU, how it works, trying to break a bit these basic software mental model of the hardware, trying to go a bit deeper. But it's still not, it's not going to a level of electronic engineer or someone who's actually designing a CPU, but at least the basis to be able to communicate with people like this, like the CPU cache, the cache line, something like this. Multi-threading a bit, I think not in this module, a bit later, but all the thing with the branch predictor, the instruction level parallelism, trying also to break all those myths of, yeah, C is better than C++ because you can write like you write in the hardware, and you're like, no, that's not the case. Like C is an abstract machine, it's not an actual machine. So trying to break this sort of, yeah, if you write your code in C and you compile it in debug, or maybe O0, like without the G flag on GCC and Clang, then your code is going to be the fastest. No, obviously not. The compiler is going to do crazy shit with your code to make it run even faster with seeing the instruction or thing like this. So I try to teach that. So that's my module. And it's a change of pace for the student, because first year is more, oh, we're doing games and it's fun and we have a nice teacher who's helping us with Unity and everything. And then it's like, okay, now shit's getting serious. Yeah. Now let's see what's under the hood. That's the big theme of the second year, is like breaking your brain every course. My favorite course is the course where I teach my students that const, private, the keywords, they're just keywords mostly for the compiler, and that behind there, well, your pointer is not private, and your const reference is not const.
Breaking the illusion.
Exactly, and we just see the compiler, and the compiler is like, yeah, I can't optimize that because you give the pointer to another function and it can put it on the global scope and then do shit with it. So I have to reload this value. And you're like, wait, why, what? And then it's like, yeah, because const. It's just a name. It's just and so to see the face on my students be like, what? It's like, yeah, because const is, it's not constant. It's just a keyword to say you're not going to change that, hopefully. And then you learn that it's like, hey, it's const exp if you really want to have something constant at compile time. And they're like, oh, okay. I mean, sort of constant on compile time. And const exp functions and things like this. So going a bit deeper into the C++ way of seeing things. I teach them, for example, I love this one, but you have a lot of people on the internet doing C++ pretty badly that don't know this one, but inline in C++ doesn't mean that your function is going to be inline. It means that you can have several definitions of this function. So it can be inline or not. The compiler decides if it's inline or not. The keyword is another one. I think it's like I forgot the force inline something, and it's different between GCC Clang and the MSVC. So and so when I say that to my students, like, yeah, inline does that mean you're going to inline your function? And they're like, wait, what? and inline. So inlining is not the keyword inline. Obviously, you need inline if you have the definition of your function in the header, of course, but inline doesn't mean what you think it is. And so I remember on internet, one pretty annoying programmer who was annoying some really good C++ programmer working with the committee I think the one, it's FMT format, the library FMT. And there was a guy annoying the coder, the programmer of this library, saying, yeah, you should put inline everywhere and put all your function in your header. And he's like, shut the fuck up. You don't know what you fucking talk about. I mean, he took the comments, put them on Twitter to have fun. That's the mostly what he did. But sometimes you have people being a bit too vocal when they should not be too vocal because they're just being ridiculous.
Yeah, but also it's like when you step aside and you work in like higher level languages and there supposedly everything makes sense. You're in like a way, like a world where everything works as you expect it, and then you go to C++. You would expect the same stuff to happen, right? Like you would expect the inline, okay, it will inline the stuff, or like, oh, it's const. Like every language now, high level language is like, immutability is important. We should make everything constant. It's like, obviously.
Yeah, of course. Of course you should make everything const by default.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also like C++ also is another world, and it's funny that like I think only now in game dev, a little bit of automotive in terms of industries really care about like there's a need for performance in such a level. Also like maybe low latency trading. You need to do really like C++.
And space as well. They go more on the C side than the C++ side.
Yeah, but it's and if you're doing web development and you just go for a little bit to just do some stuff in C++, like this world will not make sense to you, and vice versa, right? Like
if everything was C++, we'd all be dead probably.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I would say the comparison I would do is C++ is like French, where it's like, oh, here's this rule. And here is 7 exceptions. And they're like, what? That's not a rule. Yeah, of course. It's C++ is like, oh, you thought that was the rule. No, it's not it's not what you thought it was. Oh, volatile. Volatile. I learned that pretty recently. I think it was two years ago. Volatile. Because I learned Java when I did the university as well. So volatile in Java is like, oh yeah, you have a sort of a lock on your value. It's gonna be fine. You can do multi-threading. It doesn't mean the same thing in C++. Not at all. It's like, don't use volatile for multi-threading. It's not gonna work like you think it is.
It's funny. It's funny that from Java from C++ took a lot of keywords and changed the meaning. And like, if you try to switch
I think
like
so.
Static to
it
same
was
thing.
First in C++ and then Java.
Yeah.
Volatile in C++ means that your variable is going to escape the C++ abstract machine. So it would be, so the hardware can modify this value. That's what it means in C++. Which sort of make more sense than the Java version, I would say. Because it's volatile. It's like, crazy things happen. And I would say, C++ is horrible. But I think it's like the military in Switzerland. It's like if you suffered it, you want other people to suffer it as well. You want them to go through the same pain that you had.
So what now do you use from the low level stuff that you teach? What do you use on a daily basis? Do you do
C++.
Okay.
For low level things.
Okay.
C++. So at school I had some little project I did. I did a little CD builder in C++, and trying to do all the things like profiling, checking all the different function in this game. It's a really simple 2D CD builder that I did with a friend of mine from the meetup, Frédéric Dubouchet, and Yeru, who was a lot in the demo scene. So we started the project together. We did a game jam of it, Epic Game Jam. I think it was 3 years ago. Or 4 years ago. And I used this project to optimize it and to have a sort of showcase example of what it means to optimize a project that is so low level. So it's a small enough project that you can sort of understand everything, but a big enough project that it's not just a naive implementation trivial example where it's like, oh, I have this really dumb thing and I do it, and you optimize it. No, you have real constraint of game design that you still have to keep, that you can't just change for it to go faster. You want to keep the same game rules, but you want it to run faster. So I did a lot of little optimization. For example, there was a dumb one, so the city builder is on the fixed grid, maximum fixed grid, and the first sort of draw call is the whole grass.
Okay.
And the naive way was to just draw the whole map. Zoom in, zoom out, it was the same thing that was drawing. And so I did a little optimization where, depending on the zoom of the camera, you just draw what's on the screen. It would be frustrum culling of tiles, I would say. It's no frustrum, it's just a big rectangle. And it was a really dumb implementation because I had the function to transform from a 2D position to an index of this tile. So, but you just do this little implementation and you can see the difference, and you can then tell your students, you see, it's really dumb. This little math formula, and you get this index, then you go from this grass to this grass and you draw that, and that's pretty simple. And you gained half a millisecond. I don't remember exactly how much I gained, but to show a really simple example of really simple optimization, because sometimes you think it's like, yeah, I need my assembly and my Intel VTune or whatever to understand it, and no, sometimes it's just, oh yeah, I can just draw that instead of everything, and it works. And well, of course it works. And then you go to the next problem. Because games, you want them you want to implement them fast, so you do a lot of dumb things, and then when you come back to it, like, yeah, maybe I don't need to draw all the grass of the whole world, maybe just the grass that you see on screen. And you find a simple way to do that. I think the best example was a really, really dumb function that was translating enum to a vector tree. So a really simple example where you have as input up, down, left, right, and the output was just 0, 1, 1, 0, minus 1. And this function, the naive implementation, we were doing a game jam, was using STD map with the input of the enum, and the keys were the enum, and then the values were the vector tree. So a really simple implementation. A really slow one also, because STD map is red-black trees, so you have to go through, even with 4 elements, you have to go through the tree, and you have cache misses, and so if you look at the assembly, it's also disgusting. And then so there was also a constraint. The enum value were not 0, 1, 2, 3. It was 1, 2, 4, and 8, because it was using bitwise thing. So you can't, if you don't think too much about it, you can't think of it as an index. But then if you shift it by 1, then the value is 0, 1, 2, and 4, which is closer to an index. So I just re-implemented this function using a const text per array with the value that I wanted. It's just the last value, I just doubled it. And then it's 3 instructions. It's like a shift and going through a table and returning the value.
Yeah, but that's also like you need to just like you mentioned that you on a second year you teach students how to do assembly, how to understand the assembly. Like if you are programming, you're making instructions for your processor. So like you have to understand what is the subset of the instructions that your processor knows. Like you need to understand this language in order to optimize anything for it. So I
think it's Mike Acton who says that every programmer should read the Intel instruction manual with all the instruction what they do. Yeah, probably won't learn the 2000 Intel instructions, but the most important one, you should be able to read assembly, I think, as a programmer.
There is this course you maybe know, performance-aware programming from K. Casey,
Yeah,
yes,
Casimir.
Casey
I know
Murakami.
of the course, I didn't check it.
I checked it out and followed for at least more than half. And this is the same thing. Like basically in the introduction, he says what will be about, what this course will be about. But then you implement in software kind of what would CPU do. So you will receive the binary file with the instructions. You need to decode them. So he's like, so here is 8086 Intel manual. So you need to find at least these instructions to do that. Even though like it's not like do your own research stuff and like throws at you the full PDF, but still like there is some part of it to understand it. And like after doing that, I still would fail if I would see like a big the assembly, like big output from Godboard or whatever. But I have the understanding what is happening under the hood enough to understand like, okay, this makes no sense in terms of like performance. Like it's zero. It's zero.
On Godbolt, there's a really nice tool with LLVM MCA where you can see the latency of your instruction and how it will work out in terms of instructional level parallelism and things like this. So you put your assembly and it's outputting that. That's really interesting and really good to teach you the course also. Quite frankly, Godbolt is a saver for my course. It's like so awesome because you can just give the link and the students look at it. Oh, okay. If I ever meet Matt Godbolt, I will thank him so much because it's really, really useful. But yeah, and I learned assembly pretty recently in my programming years, maybe like 5 years ago. So it's pretty recent, really. And so I still learn all new things. I mean, that's the fun thing with C++. You can learn your entire life. An assembly as well, because hardware are so complex right now. Like sometimes you think you did an optimization and then you compare and it didn't change anything, or worse, it customized it. And you're like, why? And you sort of look at it and you're like, okay, I have my hypothesis, but it doesn't work great. The branch predictor is it's so fun. That I learned recently. There was a talk at CPPCon, I don't remember the speaker, doing a really, really, I would not say exhaustive, but a really good talk about how the branch predictor works.
Do an overview.
So the branch predictor, it's such an amazing piece of engineering. So typically when you have a branch, when you have a jump, the problem with modern CPU is they want to load instruction before executing them. The thing is when you have a branch, depending on the value, you will take one branch or the other. So the naive implementation would be to wait, get the value, and then take the correct branch. And so the branch predictor is sort of playing poker in a way, to try to bet what would be the most probable branch that would be taken. So naively, it would be if you do a if-else branch, for example, it would be after the naive implementation. Like the if when it's true is going to be the most probable than the else. But it's way deeper than that, the branch predictor. So if you have only the same value, for example, so let's say the input for your branch predictor is always like true, and from time to time there's one false, but it's always true. Well, the branch predictor is going to say, okay, I'm always going to assume it's true. And if it's false, I'm just going to fail, load the other instructions, but most of the time I'll be correct. If the inputs are completely random, like a bunch of 0 and 1s, well, it can't predict correctly, so you're going to probably have half branch misses. But then you have really special cases. So for example, if you have a specific pattern like 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, then you have to think, okay, how is the branch predictor implemented? Will it work or not? And that's the moment where you have to micro benchmark and try it for yourself. And this pattern, the branch predictor can see that and predict correctly. And that blew my mind. I was like, whoa, because then it's not working like, yeah, I see that this branch is taken more than this one. It's going deeper than that. Fuck. I still don't understand fully how the branch predictor works, but just it's one more knowledge that I have. But the branch predictor is not good with a sequence of arithmetic or I think no, logical or and. So, for example, the first thing that you learn in basic C++ course is like, please use double A or double vertical line to make an or an AND. And the reason for that is because if you have an AND and the first condition is false, it's not going to evaluate the second condition. Or if you have an OR and the first condition is true, it's not going to evaluate the second one because it does not need to. And it makes sense because you want to do, for example, if the pointer is null and, or if the pointer is not null and pointer value something, because you don't want to have the second one being evaluated. It makes a lot of sense. The thing is, how it's implemented is that in assembly is two jobs. Because first you check the first condition, and if it's true or false, you go to the second one, or you jump to the other part of the branch. But if you have two branches, and both of those are unpredictable, then you have a problem. So for example, if you have the pattern of random inputs, and the other one is the exact opposite. So if you combine both of those, it will be always true, for example. Then you're gonna mispredict because it's two branch, not one that the branch predictor evaluates. And the first one is completely random. That's an example that is the speaker, I forgot the name. I could check on the internet quickly because it's a really, really good, a really good talk from CPPCom. And then, so if you use an arithmetic or AND, then the branch predictor would work because then it combines both instructions. So branch predictor, the name it's Fedor-Picos. Fedor-Picos gave the branchless computing talk. Really, really, really interesting talk from CPPCon 2021. So yeah, 2 years ago. I learned more on the branch predictor 2 years ago thanks to Fedor-Picos. And the thing is also for the branch predictor, it goes outside the scope of his talk, but that's something I teach my students is virtual function are also branch predictor territory. Because virtual function, if you have a hierarchy with your method for polymorphism, is going through a V-table. And the V-table, well, it's a branch of function that might be called, depending on the pointer value and everything. So it's a branch. So if you have an array of one specific class, the branch predictor is going to guess correctly which function to call as well. So it's not going to go as slow as you might think a virtual function would go. So a lot of, I would say, C+ programmer or like C programmer would be like, oh, virtual function is bad, it's so slow. Yeah, it depends on the context. Because if you have a virtual function that is of the same class, well, it's not going to mispredict which function you should take. Yes, of course, you're going to go through a pointer. It's not going to be the best. You can optimize this with like techniques, advanced technique like memory allocation on the same place and things like this. If you do custom allocation, for example, you can do things like this. But sometimes you have I really don't like programmers that say, "Oh, this is bad," give no explanation, and probably have no idea what they talk about. As a teacher, I'm always like, "Yes, but." And I always like this a specific case where it's not the case. And virtual function can be devirtualized if you know what the pointer is, for example.
Yeah. For other people who are not maybe familiar with the virtual terminology, virtual function is pretty much the name for it stemmed from C++, right? You would
Yeah, I
call
think so.
you would
Or
call
probably
it,
other oriented,
yeah,
object-oriented language.
because pretty much for the inheritance, right? If you inherit from one class into another, from C++, it was called the virtual function was the base one, the generic one, and then this more specific class would have overridden. So like your processor who handles only the subset of instructions needs to know how to do that. Like it doesn't have inheritance structures, so it's like a big table of mapping between functions and implementations. So underneath you actually need to get through this table to understand where should you go for the reference, for the proper pointer to which kind of implementation you should use based on the type.
Yeah, exactly. And so you override the function depending on what you want or not. You can keep the same implementation. Yeah, sorry, I'm going through my crazy low-level thingy. I didn't thought about people needing to catching up on the.
Yeah, it's okay. It's
on the
okay.
details.
It's okay. Yeah, it's also like interesting now. Like game dev is such a huge space, right? If you go like start to create games in Unity, you learn C#. You kind of learn how to fill in these details, just like we were mentioning in the beginning. Like you learn to fill in the spots, for example. Here's a start method. Here's an update method. You don't know what's happening in the engine. You don't know what's happening in the language. You don't know what's happening in the rendering. Like you're just like filling in those things, and until everything works, it's nice, right? But like,
yeah, of course.
At some point, it breaks, and yeah. When did you find this like? When did you feel in your career that you want to know more than, for example, what Unity does, or like?
I think it was the first year I started to teach because I wanted to. So it's the thing of I want to be better so that my student can be better. And I didn't know how much I sucked until I really like went deep diving. It's the Alice in Wonderland. I made a really fun video for a conference where it's like, when Alice go in the rabbit hole and with her cat and she falls, and I added some label text and it's like the cat that is staying up there on the rabbit hole is the gameplay programmer. Yeah. And then you have Alice falling down the rabbit hole. That's the engine programmer. And it's like learning all the new things. Like, oh, how a build system work, and you have that. And so luckily I had some basis with the some friends from the Swiss Institute of Technology of Lausanne I had a friend who did his own game engine in C, for example. And I didn't understand much of what he was doing, but you see, the first time you see something like this, it's like it's printed in your brain, but it's like when you're a kid and you don't really understand how the world works around you, but you still see it. And then when you grow up, you're like, oh, that's what it meant. Oh, that's why I did that. So I think there was like there was some roots in my brain ready to grow. And I just needed to put a bit of water. And my motivation was like, I want to have a curriculum where students can make their own game engine. But I was bad at it because I didn't like my Python engine. And so I did several iterations of game engines, like every game engine programmer did. Like I'm at my fifth or sixth iteration of a game engine. But now mine is pretty good. So probably next year I'll start a new one. I know myself. But I'm less inclined to do that as I get older. But yeah, first year of teaching C++, where I was like, yeah, that's C++. And then, you were talking about before, like games need performance, but by default, C++ is not giving you performance. It's not by default. You have to learn, you have to go through the sort of barrier. And then I started to do micro benchmarking and looking at what actually my code is doing, and that opened my eyes of, oh shit, there's like a whole world still. So I think I'm still falling in the rabbit hole.
I think you don't stop generally, like
because because then you have. So that's also a really important thing for me. It's at school I have external lecturer, and a lecturer I really enjoy inviting and talk with is John Guy Davidson. He used to work at Creative Assembly as a head of engineering practice. He's also a member of the standard committee for C++. And I love talking to him because it's only once a year that I can talk with someone at this level in C++ and games programming. So I'm learning a lot when I talk with him. And it's always enjoyable because I don't have the impression to talk to, sometimes you have this impression of talking to a god or a master or whatever, and we're just friends with Guy. We went to eating fondue, we went to the mountain, and I think he enjoys coming to Switzerland because I cherish his venue. So yeah, fondue, Bed Lake.
What is he doing now?
That's a good question. I think he's doing a little break now.
Okay.
And I'll see him. He's coming in February. Yeah. He's coming to give course. He's coming to the meetup as well. So it's going to be the 8th of February, no, the 7th of February. Just let me check the dates. I think it's it's going to be 7th of February. Is giving course at school until Friday. And on the 10th is going to be a feature speaker at my conference. Because I'm also, I organize a conference. I didn't say that as a role. So you see how many roles I have? I even forgot some.
Let's talk about it then.
Sure. So the RGB Games Programming Conference is a 3 times a year conference that I organize in Geneva. So 3 because there's the 3 color, red, green, and blue. So we had the red for Indie edition that was last year, 30th of October. It was a really fun event. We were not that much people on site. There were some people online as well. So we did the streaming of the conference. And all the talks were super interesting. I was really happy about that. And red for Indie for me is like the weird stuff, the weird implementation. Like Julien Revel, for example, a French developer, used the scene hierarchy in Unity as a behavior tree. And you're like, what?
Why?
and so using script attached to those game objects that calls the next game object. So it's really weird. It's not well in terms of performance. It's not that great as well. So I think it's switching the system to the dots stack now. But it's like super weird, but it works. It makes sense, sort of. It's not the most naive implementation. It works. And I love those kind of talks where you're like, what the hell? So I really enjoy his talk. There was a talk about the architecture behind The Last Night, which was a game that gained a lot of traction, I think, in 2018 when they did the reveal at E3. And back in the day, they were published by Roll Fury, but now they're independent again. Still did not release The Last Night, but I think they're going to show some things in the next months, years, maybe. And so he was talking about how they enable through their own visual scripting and interface of values. There's a really famous talk in Unity talk about using scriptable objects everywhere. So scriptable objects are data that you can put on the disk that are going to be loaded in memory when you run your game on Unity. And there was sort of a talk where there was like a scriptable object that is like a float value that you can attach sort of everywhere. And as a programmer, when I see that, I'm like, oh, please don't do that. Because it's like all my hair are going up, like I have chair de poule in French is like when you're frightened and all your hair goes up. I was like, oh. It creeps me to see that. I do hope my Kevin never asked me to have a system like this. And so what they did for the last night was like a super intelligent system. So for example, um, the designer can go on, I don't know, an audio source, and they can put a special kind of mono behavior that the programmer did, where they can say, I want this audio source to depend on this float reference. And this float reference can be a scriptable object, can be a variable in a component, so that you can modify, for example, the volume of the audio source through this interface. It can be anything, or their own custom allocation float variable somewhere.
Okay.
And the designer just have to find the good value, and that's it. So, and their own visual scripting thingy is a bit slower than C#, but for like high level thingy, because they have a big open world thing in 2D, I think. So they need to make it alive and not have the programmer implement everything. And I thought it was like pretty intelligent. The talk is now online. Like the RGB talks are getting released all throughout December. So don't hesitate to go on the Team Quaqua YouTube channel and see all the talks. They're ranging in difficulty in terms of. I'm the only one talking about Game Boy programming on the opening keynotes, where they're mostly accessible, the talks. As a programmer, most of them are accessible. This talk was super interesting. There was David Stark talking about procedural content generation of his overworld maps in his game Airships Conquer the Sky. A pretty successful game, a pretty successful indie Swiss game. He's from Zurich, David Stark. We had Oleg Glushkin, one of my an alumni from SAE Institute, give a talk, an overview of audio in games, how it works in terms of the science behind. Really interesting talk. Sylvester de Graffenried gave a talk about doing his own custom UI in C++. So something pretty interesting. I think sort of between immediate mode and I don't remember the other one, UI mode that you can do. What else? There was Jean Ravel. Florian Golesti talked about the gameplay ability system, but he's a producer. He's not per se a programmer, but it was interesting for us to see this point of view as well. And Tom Avatar gave a talk about his crazy audio game. He's doing a game album and a game concert. So he's controlling a game, and it's a concert. And he gave the concert at the end of the conference. It was pretty fun to have that at the end. But then having a concert for game programmer are not the kind of people who dance that much. So compared to his concert at Stunfest, it was not that dynamic, but yeah, it was really cool music.
But for all the people who are listening, go now to the RGB Conf.ch.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. That's the website.
Because not the .com, .ch.
Yeah, .ch. It's not .ch. It's a Swiss event. So,
Swiss, but just admire the website. Like,
oh yeah, true. It's HTML 1.2.
Yeah. I love it. Like, it's so fun. It's so fun to just see. It's like it loads instantly. You don't need to do like minification of JavaScript or whatever. Like, there's no JavaScript.
There's some JavaScript, but
yeah,
there's no CSS by far. It's like black text on white. It's the default font, like it used to be, and it's a voluntary choice.
It has pictures now, right?
Huh?
It has pictures now.
Yeah, of course. I need some picture, of course.
Yeah.
It's the basic thing. Like on the landing page, there's one picture.
And when is the upcoming one?
10th of February. So
10th of February.
Green edition. The green edition is going to be a bit more serious, more about industry talks. Like the Red for India edition, my opening keynote was a call for dumb decisions. Because when you're indie, sometimes you have to go through your decision because it's gonna make something unique as well. Like, for example, the dumb decision I was giving as an example is like talking to Frédéric Dubaucher, say, "Oh, I want to do a Game Boy game," and he would say, "Why would you do that?" But not in a positive way. Like why would you do that? It's like hard, it's dumb. And I was typically when someone respond this way, I'm like, why not? And then I did a Game Boy game, and it was a pain in the ass. I never do a Game Boy game, but at least I learned. Or organizing a 3 times a year conference, maybe not the best idea, but I wanted to do that, so I did it anyway. The Green Edition, we have a lot of ideas. We opened up the call for projects, so if anyone is interested to give a talk, don't hesitate to submit a proposal. On the website, we have a Google form. I already sort of like pinged some of my friends I know have really nice subject to talk about. So the Green for Edition, for sure, we're going to have Guy Davidson. The talk, he teased me the talk. It's the name of the talk is what we say. Do I have the name exactly of the? Yeah. About what we mean when we say platform. Okay. So probably it's going to speak about hardware or the CPU or the OS and things. So I'm really looking forward for that. And my opening keynote is probably going to be with economists working with the IPCC. And we're going to give a talk about sustainability in terms of the climate change and how it's going to shape the world and probably shape the industry as well. So I'm really looking forward for that too. So I'll be talking about the technical side of what's going to happen. So we're going to talk about assembly, and he's going to talk about the kind of solution that are thought about in the industry. Of course, when you're an indie game developer from Switzerland, you don't have big servers with you do your. I mean, it's not a shitty game I do, but you have your little game with like nice cats that is going to run on the computer from 10 years ago, still fine. You don't have to worry much about climate change. Maybe going to conferences everywhere in the world is not going to be easier. But for example, the 4 main domains that are still going to be big in terms of the economy when shit is going to happen with climate is water, energy, food, and health. And the one that is important for us, game developer, it's not food that much. Because we only eat pizza. No, we don't eat only pizza. But, no, the one that is interesting for us is energy. Because our computer waste a lot of energy. Use a lot of energy. The servers use a lot of energy. And if you have, in the future, a world where energy cost is not linear anymore, when there's a certain ceiling, where it goes exponential, you can't have all sorts of server running whenever you want. So you're probably going to have like an alternative system where you're going to have more server availability during the night, for example, when you use less energy, for example, because your nuclear central, for example, is going to create a sort of stable amount of energy throughout the day. But when you're not using this energy, it's going to go to waste. Like you have to use it, and to store it is pretty hard. Like battery is pretty expensive for the amount of energy available. So you can just throw that to servers for kids to play games during the whole night. It's not the best idea, of course, but it's an idea. And what I'm going to talk about, probably I have to do my research and prepare this talk. It's going to be about currently the compiler optimized for speed, not for power consumption, and it's relatable, but it's not that linked. So certain instruction will consume more energy than other instruction. And it will be a sort of thought experiment about a new compiler flag for power consumption that goes fast instead of just going as fast as possible. There's some interesting paper. It was a person from the meetup working at the EPFL, Swiss Institute of Technology, but he's working at the crypto analysis lab. So he used a paper to sort of see the consumption of instruction because he's trying to guess instruction with power consumption of the CPU. Something like completely crazy. And so they did some experiments with AMD CPU, and they realized that the emul instruction, so the instruction that multiply numbers, consume less energy on this specific AMD CPU than the add instruction. And the worst instruction is the nope instruction, which is an instruction that does nothing. But it consumes more energy than additions. And so you're like, wait, what? Like emul use less energy, but then when you look at the Intel CPU, then you don't have the same report. So that's an even harder problem than just going fast for a generic case. So there's a lot of questions we can ask about. But yeah, that's going to be a part of my talk, talking about that. And also the practices of, if your game can be run in 10 years because you didn't put shit in it, like online only, or well, then more people are going to play it, and obviously those kind of practices use less energy as well. So talking more about those kind of things as well. So that's going to be my opening keynote. So way more serious than do dumb decision, please. And so that's the green edition that is going to happen the 10th of February. You can already buy the tickets, so the shop is open. But I'm going to send for the game developer meetup some promo codes, or for my students as well. There's going to be a special student price. We're going to share that with the university game programming schools all around Geneva, Lyon, and Lausanne, for example, and Zurich as well. And then there's going to be in end of June, probably, the Blue Edition. And Blue Edition is more for students to have a day of talks where they can also present their bachelor thesis, for example. So there's going to be some of my students probably also giving some way shorter talk, though, talking about their games, what they're working on, what kind of techniques they're trying to do, and invite some companies to go to this conference to hire some students also. That would be a nice goal as well for the Blue Edition. But it's in June. I'm focusing on the Green Edition for now, and the release of all the different Red Edition talks. I think the last one is going to release next week, Friday, or the week after. I'm not sure. Again, everything is planned already, so I don't need to intervene to post the talks, but they're all on the Team Quaqua YouTube channel, so don't hesitate to go there.
Yeah, by the time this episode will go out, everything should be up online from your end, because this will be, it will take some time.
Yeah, to edit and everything. You're doing a perfect job. I don't have to touch the podcast.
Yeah. Okay. And I wanted also to ask you about your game, because you're currently working on Superators.
Yeah.
And the Superators, what is it about? And who is this person who has a hat and is a cat?
So Superaitors is a tactical RPG with a real-time battle system. I'll talk about more the battle system afterward, but I'll focus on the story first. And so you follow the crew composed of Black Whiskers. Black Whisker is the cat, pirate captain. Of White Fur, that's the girl, and Crocus, the big crocodile. And all together, they're trying to liberate the Western Soup, which is a big sea of bread islands. In the world, there isn't a big soup. So the whole world isn't a big soup, ramen, whatever you wanted to see it as. the god of the soup is a kid who does not want to drink his soup, just mixing it and doing nothing with it. So yeah, the Black Whiskers, his real name is Peanut, and he's the youngest of a big family of pirates. And he has, I think, about 10 brothers and sisters. About 10 siblings. And throughout the islands, you're liberating the island, but you're also freeing one of your siblings. The current demo is one island, is the Red Island, and you're liberating it from the Red Baron, which is the big bear, intended, and you're freeing your sister Dorothy, who is the leader of the Seagull Revolution against this Red Baron. So something completely crazy, funky as a story. And the big evil of the Western Soup is Mr. Whale of this big company, Mr. Whale Delivery Service, which is, pirates against merchants. And this time it's the merchant being the evil bastard. So it's really a crazy game. So the first time I used this character, Black Whisker, was for a Game Boy Jam game. So it was not an actual Game Boy game. It was a Game Boy themed game that we did with the Unity. It was a simple hack and slash where you control this Black Whisker character and you sort of avenge yourself of your crew who abandoned you. So first you had to fight Krokos, then there was, I don't remember the second character because he didn't survive this prototype, and then you fought against Whitefur, who you thought was dead, but actually not. And this game was really fun to do. I really enjoyed this universe, and between this game and then there was a comic we did, like one chapter of a comic, and in between this comic and this prototype, we added this soup component. Like, the world is in soup. And all kind of people are asking, why is it in the soup? It's because when you accept that it's in the soup, you ask less questions about what the fuck is going on. And because it's fun. Like, the world does not need to be round. It can be flat and with big walls on the side of the world that you can't pass because it's the bowl, it's the wall of the bowl.
Yeah, you're limiting the world space now.
Exactly. It's like, as game developer, you have to learn to limit your scope. Well, the scope is the bowl.
Yeah.
But then the game is only happening in the Western Soup because in the next games you're gonna go maybe to the Eastern Soup and.
Do you keep the same characters throughout your Game Jam games and now the project? Or?
Sometimes, but not that much. Sometimes you have character that goes through games. For example, we had a game for the Global Game Jam. It was called the Irish, the Imp, and the Witch.
I love your game titles. Like all of your game titles are like wordy, big, like connected in a weird way.
I mean, Superator is pretty simple. At least this one is like, okay.
Yeah.
But with the Irish, the Imp, and the Witch, it's not a good title. But it's a small Global Game Jam game. It was an asymmetric multiplayer game where you were either the hunter or the imp. And there's a witch at the center of the level that is trying to do a sort of ritual. So if you're the imp, you're taking the ingredient and you're bringing it to the witch. Or if you're the hunter, you shoot the damn motherfucker. And it's like, when you're the hunter, you feel so powerful because you have a big shotgun. And when it's hitting something, it's bouncing off. And it's like, it's completely crazy in this game. I really enjoyed it. Global Game Jam 2017, I think, or 2016. It's still a really fun game. I enjoy giving it to my students. And when you're the imp, you really like to run fast and you hide behind obstacles and you're like really frightened. And you can take more ingredient than one, but when the more ingredients you take, the slower you get, and then the hunter comes and just shoots you. And the Irish guy, the hunter, made its way to Splash Blast Panic as a playable character.
Okay.
So this one came from another game. Did we have other characters? So Black Whisker from the prototype Black Whisker went to the Superators. Oh no, I remember. So there's so in Splash Blast Panic we have 2 robots character, one male, one female, sort of gender. I mean, it's robot. And the female one, I added it to a game jam prototype that I did with my ex back in the day. We did a dating game for robots, which is not safe for work. And one of these characters is insane. Yeah, of course you can do it. Not safe for work games. It's really fun. And in this game, she was like a goddess of ancient time that wanted to destroy the world. So you're like swiping left or right, depending on the question. I played it recently, and because the theme of the jam of the game jam was it mechanic love, amour mécanique was the theme of the game jam. It was the game jam we organized at school. And I was with my ex, I was like, yeah, mechanic love. Yeah, we can do a dating camp for robots. And it went way too far. But it was a lot of fun. I mean, game jam is supposed to be fun. I did my master thesis in game design. I did it about game jams. Game jams are, in my thesis, I sort of defined game jams as a design method, but also as a game. So there was a paper about defining game jams as game, and you sort of have the same characteristic between a game jam and a game. Like a game jam, you can win or lose a game jam. You can lose a game jam because you can stop in the middle and say, "Oh, okay, I don't want to make a game," or "The game sucks," or "I didn't manage to do a game." So you can lose a game jam, and you can win a game jam because at the end you can have something. You have constraints, you have rules, and you can have fun or not. I prefer to have fun when I do game jams. And fun is also about the kind of game you do. You can go through at a game jam trying to be serious, or you can just do, we'll do a game. We'll try to do a fun game. But in the end, it's important also to have fun. And the older I get, the less I'm inclined to be too serious when I do a game jam, because I'm like, it's gonna be a weekend, it's gonna be fun. I don't care. The only important thing is now I sleep way more during the game jam than I used to.
Yeah. I also, like, you did a lot of game jams. Like,
I did about 40,
yeah. What would you say is, like, because I think the common mistake of everybody's starting first moves in the game dev world is like, oh, I'm gonna make this awesome game, I would love to play, but it will take like 4 years, like it's because it's gonna be so huge and it's gonna be MMO and whatever.
Yeah, and we're gonna be millionaire because we're so smart.
And then you start working on this idea for 3 years and like you drown and then you quit and you're like,
I think most people do 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it was a dumb idea, and then they switch to something else.
But when you do so many game jams as you did, like, what do you learn? What do you learn from this? Like, when you're now
to scope a bit.
Okay. Yeah, probably so. But also, like, if you're now starting a game, when you're working on a game for a game jam, like, what constraints do you have? How do you scope it?
So you mean for game jam?
Yeah.
So now also I know myself a bit more. So at the beginning, so as a programmer, normally if you're good enough, you have this sort of sense when someone is talking about a feature on how long it's gonna take. So they're gonna be let's do a roguelite with AI doing this. So you're like, okay, I need pathfinding, I need procedure. You have a process happening in your brain where you're sort of like scoping everything. And well, if the feeling is like, well, maybe it's not gonna work out, maybe that's one consider. I'm like, can we try to do without the roguelite? Just do the level by hand, for example. We did a roguelite during Epic Game Jam 2 years ago with Kevin. It was a lot of fun. I just wanted to sort of prove to my students that you can do a roguelite in 2 days. That is better than the roguelite that did in 4 weeks. Just to teach them, you see, people can do that.
See?
Yeah, I mean, it's so important to understand that as a student, you're here and your goal is to arrive here.
Yeah.
But you have to, through the studies, try to go as quickly as possible close to this point, because people are expecting this level, not this level. Especially if it's a Swiss salary, they expect you to be as efficient like this, and just okay-ish. We understand that you are a junior programmer, but still. So there's this. Also, for me, I think that is important. I can be an asshole sometimes, but I want to have an idea of a game that I can sort of get personal with it. Not really personal, but where I can agree with, like, oh yeah, it's gonna be fun. Like, this game, I think it can be fun.
The game has to convince you.
Yeah, sort of. I'm pretty easy with that. It's pretty easy to convince me, but still, like, if the idea is like meh, I'll be like, can we try to add something to make it more interesting? And I also like to have a sort of complete game design. If the game is too trivial, like we did recently, I mean, 2 years ago, I think, with Kevin, we did a game that for me was too trivial. And I was like, we should have added something more. And so now I'm more picky. I'm like, no, we should have something that makes it, that breaks the sort of triviality of the 1-2 main mechanics. The last game we did in the Game Jam was during Epic Game Jam in July. So Epic Game Jam is an awesome event. Nothing to do with the Epic Games. It's a Game Jam in Neuchâtel, happening since 2014, I think.
And Neuchâtel is in Switzerland.
Yeah, it's in Switzerland. And it's a sort of funky Game Jam. So themes are always a bit weird. And it's always really revealed through a pinata. So you break a pinata and then you have a theme in it. It's organized by a really wonderful team, Vitraire, Caro and Tony, that are a member of the meetup as well in Lausanne. Don't hesitate to come to the Game Developer Meetup as well if you're listening to the podcast and you're in the region. It's on meetup.com. You can find it, Swiss Romande, a Game Developer Meetup. And it's free, so you just have to pay your beer when you're at the bar, because we get it for free, the location. And so Epic Game Jam, get a theme, and every once in a while during the weekend, they're adding not mandatory sub-themes. So you can really go anywhere, this kind of idea. And we did a game, which the name was Beach Slap. And so you're an owl on a big beach by the sea, and it's grid-based. So you're isometric grid-based. And so when you stand on the square on the tile, it turns to your color. And your goal is to wander around to get as much color as possible. So it's pretty simple. So if you walk, it's going to do a line. If you close an area, it's going to fill with your color. So that's super strategic. So you can really do a big round and then pop this color. If someone pops a color and you're on the grid, you get ejected.
Okay.
Not outside of the level, you get knocked out for a while. So you can also trap an opponent. And then there's a ball. And you can run against the ball, and the ball turns your color and goes super fast and bounce around.
Okay.
So you can really like have strategy where you run against the ball, you go the opposite way, the ball bounces and connects with you, and then makes a big area. The goal is to have the most area by the time end.
And
so sometimes you can dominate, and then at the end have someone kick the ball and beat you.
Local multiplayer?
Yeah, local multiplayer. Okay. I'm looking at trying to make it online multiplayer. It will not be that difficult. The difficulty for me is finding the time to do that with all the other projects.
Yeah.
But I have a computer networks module, and that's a good pretext a good reason to be like, oh, yeah, boss, I have to prepare this module of computer networks. Can I be paid to work on this little game and make the online multiplayer? And I never say anything to this boss, so he's always, he agrees by default because I do the fuck I want. It's my department. So. But it's got to be a good reason to do that.
Okay, let's head back to the Superators.
Yeah, so I did like a big detour to arrive back to Superator. So the battle system in Superator went through several iterations, but the current one is you have 2 4x4 grids, and your team is on the left side, and you only have one character on the grids at the same time. The 2 other are just outside, like when you play the ball at school. It's like they're ready to enter the terrain whenever you want them, and you can switch between those characters anytime you want. Your character moves in real time, so you don't need to wait your turn to move or anything. You can really like avoid enemy attack directly if you need to, depending on the speed of your character, of course. And each character has a unique set of attack. So you can use White Fur, who's faster, and use a little pistol to shoot at a distance. The thing is, the pistol is not that effective, but then you can switch with Crocus, who has a big cannon. He takes 2x2 squares, so it's pretty big. It's pretty slow, but when he hits with the cannon, it hits hard. So, and he has this sort of shotgun attack where it's just the 4 square in front of him, or the mortar attack when it's doing like an attack. Again, 2x2 squares are attacked, but at a distance of 4. So you can attack enemy at a distance with Crocus. And on the right side, of course, you have the enemies, and they're all on the same grid, and they're moving around, attacking you, but they're sort of telegraphing their attack. They're saying, I'm moving there and attacking here. So for you, you can use this information to move. And obviously, the first opponent are pretty simple, the seagulls. But when you go to mini bosses or the bosses, they're way harder, because then they attack on multiple squares, and you're like, oh shit, and you have to quickly change your character because you want to put as much damage as possible as quickly as possible. But on the same time, your characters are not that strong compared to bigger bosses. Like White Fur can get needs three hits to go down. Black Whisker, I think it's 4 hits. Crocus a bit more, so can handle more damage, but when you don't have Crocus, then you don't have that much firepower anymore. So you have to be intelligent on how you use your characters. So that's the battle system.
Yeah, when I seen it for the first time, I thought like, ooh, it has elements of like Into the Breach, where you're seeing what the enemies will do, but it's not turn based. So it's kind of you gotta keep moving, like you gotta do stuff, like you can't just like sit around and wait for it and plan your attacks carefully. It's like go now.
One of the first iteration was super close to Into the Breach, like on a big grid, and you see all the other enemy attack, and you could do whatever you wanted to sort of counter those attacks. And you could see, like in Into the Breach, where you can counter an attack, and then you see the arrow changing, thing like this. Then it switched to the same system, but with the grids, the 2 4x4 grids. Then it went real time, but you had your whole team on your grid, and that was horrible for players. Managing 3 characters real time on a grid, that's super hard. So switching was just changing the cursor. And the last iteration is the best one, because from the team-based iteration to this one, now I can put more enemies doing more shit to you than beforehand. Because beforehand I had to be really careful not to disrupt you too much. It was like super stressful playing Superators in the previous iteration. Now the current iteration is like really fun. Finally, 4 iteration to get what I wanted. Because it's a bit weird, this game. Huh?
When did you start?
The first iteration, I think, was 2018.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't work full time on it. So 2018, we finished the comic, Superator, the first chapter. Okay. So we get the glimpse of the universe. I have some in my office, some of the drafts of the comic by Alexis Simreta. He's a really talented artist. But then he left the project. I think it was 2019. That was a hard shock for Superators. So we managed to do some iteration together. Then there was the new art team, so Julie Bechtold, Camille Beauvais, and it started with Swan Keller, but he left the project as well. So I was left with Julie and Camille. Camille is the 2D animator, and Julie the rest of the art and level design thingy. Way too much role at the same time. And that's what led to the current prototype. So first it was still the whole team on the same grid, and then I was like, maybe I can try that. There's always this kind of moments where like, I want to give up on this project. Where I'm like, okay, people don't like it because the team base is too hard, so I'll do something else I do with my life and all. And then I'm like, yeah, maybe I can try this. And then I try that, the game gets better, and I'm like, oh shit, I have to work on this game again. And then I make people play it, and they enjoyed it, and I'm like, shit. Because when people like you, it's with Superators, some people are like, oh, the game's good. Of course, like any game. Or they don't understand. It's like, what the fuck is the game is bad. And then you have a minority of people, and that's the most important that you need, that just love the game. Like, they adore the game. They're like, when is it coming out? I really want to play it. Oh, it looks really good. And you're like, well, actually, it's a bit on the break. Or, yeah, we're working a bit on it, but we need a publisher, we need some things. And the current iteration is managed to have passionate people about it. And if you get passionate players, gamer-free game, you won. Because even if your game is shit, you know they're gonna do artwork, they're gonna do fan art, they're gonna annoy all their friends for them to buy your game, and just that is enough for me. Like, I don't need the money. I have my job as a teacher. I mean, I need the money to make the game, of course, but my goal as a game developer is not to be sustainable in terms of finance, because I have my income. I don't need more. And I'm not gonna. If I get serious with Superators, it's still gonna be part-time. It's not gonna be full-time.
Yeah. What stage is Superators in now?
End of pre-production. So now we have this one island. We know what we want to do with the gameplay. Still need to define some things for the more. So the short-term feedback loop is sort of clear, and you just need to be a bit clearer for the middle and long-term loop, gameplay loop. There's still some details to sort. If for the first time in my life I'm writing a game design document. That's what I say. Some of my students are so keen to have the perfect game design document. I'm like, I don't fucking care about the document. There's a point where I have to try the idea and see if it works, and not just write it down. Because if it sucks, it's gonna suck on the game design document.
Yeah, it's gonna suck in writing.
A great idea on the game design document could suck in real life. So
why do you write it though?
Just to have a clear idea and to be able to present it to publishers.
Yeah, after a couple.
Some publisher ask for game design documents. I'm like, oh, get it along.
Okay, after a couple of years of iteration, also and probably multiple different people involved, it's also probably nice to have it written down, to have like a shared vision. What is it now? Not what was it like 2 years ago?
The thing I prefer to work alone on the game design
Okay.
and to have my colleagues criticize everything.
Okay.
Because my sort of intuition in game design is always cooperative. So I'm like, also, so I have this prototype. My colleagues tried it, or I made it tried by other people, and we see problems. We're like, okay, those are the problems. How do we solve those? And then it's like we have to define what the problem are. That's typical of game design. The first sort of task is not to just listen to the player and directly implement something to correct it, but is to understand the problem. So sometimes it's pretty easy, pretty direct. Sometimes it's a bit beneath what you thought it was. Like player, most of the time have a really bad suggestions to make you, but the problem is real though.
Yeah,
You can't deny a problem of a player.
Yeah, it's always for a player. It's important to note for a players listening. Like it's not, if you give feedback, tell about your problem, not suggest a solution, right?
Yeah, I mean you can always. It's just we're gonna listen to you, but we're probably not gonna implement that.
Yeah. Because
we're gonna be polite. Yeah. We're not gonna say shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. We'll be nice most of the time. If it's the end of the festival, maybe I'm not that nice, but I'll try to be not too important.
But the problems are real usually. Like the feedback.
Yeah, of course, you see if they don't understand something, it's a true problem. It's you didn't communicate it perfectly, so you need to go back on the design table and change some things.
So how big is Superator? How big is supposed to be?
You mean in terms of scope or team?
Scope as a game, yeah.
So about 10 islands with a simple overworld, like I would say Super Mario 3 or Super Mario Land 2 for those who remember that on the Game Boy. Like you go from one island to the other. It might have some events in the overworld, but mostly is you going to an island. And those islands most of the time have like 3 layers or 4 with like mini bosses and a setting. That's also something that is important for me, is the challenge to have something, a different feeling and a really weird setting always. So the Red Island, it's mostly like French doing strikes and having like Baron, and the setting of the level is really like sort of Greek, but with some South Asia, Oceanian architecture or Mayan. There's a lot. Our goal is always to have something that feels unique. Like you don't enter to an island and be like, oh, it's Italy. Okay. Like, of course, the seagull you directly see they're French because I literally gave them French names. That's for my French colleagues and all my French friends, always striking and being complaining about stuff. That's worked perfectly for seagulls. But for the rest is like I'm thinking about how do you say, characters that you can remember. Like the Red Baron, you're like, oh, it's a big bear. There is a Baron. And it's like a charismatic character. Dorothy as well. It's like she's the cat that is bringing the seagull revolution together, because otherwise seagulls are just fighting against each other and drinking wine and eating stuff.
Like French people do.
Yeah, so they needed a charismatic figure like Dorothy to bring them together. But she's struggling to get a victory, and you're bringing this victory by helping her. But she hates you because you're the younger one. You know, you get bullied as this little brother. So yeah, that's sort of the setting for this island. Another island is going to be the Globe Theater. So it's just the Globe Theater as an island, and you're going to free one of your sister that loves hearing about stories, and the boss is a parrot that is just lying about everything. So if you have someone that wants to hear stories and someone that says just bullshit stories, they go well together. And the name of the parrot is Paoteo, because he's a big theatrical parrot. And the fight is going to be close to the one in Monkey Island, where you have to choose the correct dialogue.
Nice.
So you have the normal fight, and then you have this sort of dialogue moment where it's like a theatrical piece, and you're like, oh. I didn't think about the mini boss yet, but the boss is going to be Paotelo. One of your main nemesis as Black Whisker is the son of Mr. Whale, and it's a dolphin. There's like a bodybuilder dolphin, and his name is Dolph. Just Dolph. And it's super dumb, but it's still your nemesis. You're the little cat with the sword, and you're to kill motherfucking Dolph.
It's nice. It's nice. After some point of like absurdity, nobody any longer expects the explanation, right?
Yeah, of course.
Like it's like first it's like soup, white soup, okay. But then when you see bodybuilder dolphin, it's like okay.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Yes. Then there's the second in command in Mr. Whale Delivery Service. It's Natasha Panzer Tigerin. So it's a tiger. It's sort of like this big Nazi lady tiger. And the boss fight is literally going to be you fighting a Panzer tank. So so that's going to be fun as well. And it's going to be in a sort of Bavarian island, so with like big mountains. So there's going to be a fight on the roller cable car. So you're going to be on the cable car fighting. So there's one grid on the cable car, one grid on the other one, and that's inspired by a really old Second World War movie, the Eagle's Nest, I think, where it's a bunch of secret agents attacking a castle in Germany or whatever. But there was this sort of scene in a cable car where they fight together.
They fight in a cable car.
Yeah.
But this wasn't special effects then, right? Like
no, there was no special effect back in the day. So.
Okay.
It's a really fun movie with Clint Eastwood, and I don't remember all the actor name, but there was Clint Eastwood in it. And so it's inspired by this film, where you're going to have, and in the game, you're going to have a cable car fight. The main island of the Western Soup is Setisha. That's the island of Mr. Whale. And it's a big island, this one, and you're going to come several times in this island, and it's going to change depending on which moment you are in the story. What else? I think I have an island where I have a sort of a Majora's Mask island, so where the time is important, and so the brother that you try to free there is how do you say, when you have sleep crisis, when you just sleep without any control. It's not deep calop. It's
I don't remember. Is it sleep apnea?
Yeah, something like this. And so the boat that leaves the island is always at 7 a.m., but always at 6 a.m. it falls asleep. So you have to try to find a way for him to be awake, to be able to go away of the island. And the boss of this island is sort of like it's a cock, the boss of the island. It's like always waking him up at the worst moment ever. Okay.
Well, is it in the current state accessible somewhere, like a demo or on a?
You mean the islands or
the game, the Superator?
No, so the game, you have to go on the Superators.com website.
Yeah.
Then you have to go on the Discord. There's a link for the Discord, and then there I'm validating your getting in the Discord, and then you get the access to a secret channel where you get the link to the demo.
Nice.
In purpose, it's made not that public because it's really not just the demo.
Okay.
But yeah, if people want to play it, I always give the link to the Discord.
So it's Superator,
.com.
superator.com, and a Discord server there.
I mean, if you put Superators on Google, you'll find it.
You're famous now.
I mean, there's not a lot of games about soup, so that helps. Like, I mean, obviously, if I put Superators, I find some.
Yeah, I guess you have
it's the first link for
contextual results though. Yeah, probably. But okay, let me try.
Yeah, I'll see if my Google search is. I think mine is the 10th one is not Superators anymore. It's the Superators,
Yeah,
not Superriders.
Yeah. It's there. It's up there.
Perfect.
Okay. Did we? I think we've covered most of the things I wanted to cover.
Pourquoi, Superators, the conference, what I do at school. So yeah, I'm really active in. So the thing is that is really funny. Maybe that's gonna be my conclusion. Is even if Superators, I don't work that much on it. So you could say, yeah, you're not really a game developer because you don't really work on the game now. Well, I still do it actually. With my teaching, I do a lot of game development as projects or low-level thingy, but I still teach game development. And with the conference now, there's a platform to talk about game programming, game development as well. So I'm always around game development, which is funny because 2019 and maybe also last year, I had doubt if I wanted to continue to be a game developer because it's hard in Switzerland. But every time I go back to it because it's a thing I can do, and I can do it well, and it's something that is easy for me to do now. So yeah, of course I'm going to continue that. And yeah, like I told you, I'm also writing a novel, but that's now mostly for fun. It's not that serious compared to game development. That is now my job. So I think that's all. Game development can become a passion also, but not in the way you would expect. Like not only making games, we have everything around making games that is still important. In the company, we're looking at alternative to Unity. And so I'll be developing tools, for example, independent tools outside of game engines, for example, tools that can generate files that can be read in other engine or like Godot or game makers or whatever. We'll probably try some other game engine as Unity for the next month and years at Team Quaqua, because Unity is going a bit downward recently. And I always want to learn new things. There's something that is like repetitive with me. There's always a moment where I'm like, oh, I can learn that. I could try to learn that. And maybe when I'm 18 years old, I'll be like, I think I learned enough. Now I can like rest in peace. But yeah, Superators, I really hope it will work one day. But it's never, you never know if it's gonna be possible or not when you're doing a game, because I need money for a publisher, and now the economy of games is not that great getting a publisher, but it's gonna get better maybe next year. So we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. It was a lot of fun. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a lot of pleasure. I mean, I've been monologuing. I'm sorry for the poor souls who had to bear my assembly and low-level talk without me considering them at the beginning.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I just gave a lot of words. You can watch them online, learn by yourself.
Yeah. It was really nice. And thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Looking forward to see you again at the next year.
Yeah.
And thanks for inviting me again.
Take care.